not only has to invest in a lot of plugins, different rendering engines, but also a lot of hardware is thrown at to render something like this. Now imagine a time where all this kind of content is real time and you don't have to spend much time, waiting for your renders to be out. This is all real, this is all real time, and the speed and efficiency is much improved because whatever you create, you see it there and then. That's the kind of visualization which we are talking about from Autodesk, and Stingray can help you build all of that. So wait and watch for this presentation to follow. I'll be touching upon the existing production workflows or pipelines, what are the issues which we face today, and how Stingray is going to help improve and rectify all of that. So in the general creation workflow for a design visualization space or market, we have three dimensions to it. One is your modeling phase. This modeling phase can come anywhere from a 3D CAD software or a BIM instruction model, a Revit or an ArchiCAD or AutoCAD. These are the several places where you can actually create your content or start modeling. Now there are various applications which are available: 3D Soft, Max, Maya, SketchUp. There are various tools to do that. And when you have created all these kind of models, you have to assemble and accumulate it in a different software. So from 3ds Max to Maya, or even other vendors or any applications like Cinema 4D, you can do scene creations very effectively. Now, I'm not touching upon just Autodesk products, I'm talking about holistically, which happens in design visualization space. Autodesk plays a very big role, but then there are other small houses which use, different softwares, which might not be the most effective ones, but they do exist. So we at Autodesk are trying to have an ecosystem which works very well with our Autodesk family products. And that would be the idea of how, if you're creating your models, your scene assemblies or scene creations, and eventually if you want to kind of interactively see them, Autodesk helps you in a very big way. Last not the least, in the whole assembly of projects, you have to have a rendering system. This could be you investing your money in different rendering engines or softwares or plugins which are available. Typically we have V-Ray, Mental Ray, Corona, Maxwell. A couple of them are free. For example, Mental Ray is free, but if you want to have another plugin like V-Ray, you have to actually pay for it. So these are the kind of things which kind of can hamper the progress and productivity of a medium to small design visualization company, wherein they wouldn't want to do heavy investments in terms of being there rendering plugins or rendering engines, or even adding a lot of hardware to kind of turn out that kind of render speeds. So it's a big bottleneck and kind of slows down the entire process. So moving forward, I'm just going to check if we have any questions or something. Do you realize that we can see your screen now? Okay, sorry, I just saw. Okay, thanks for that. I didn't know that. Okay, so moving ahead. Any questions till now? No, right? Okay, so let's move ahead. The problem with a legacy design workflow or a design visualization is that we typically have a lot of changes which are frequently increasing. So it could be anything to do with moving about of placement of foliage, which is to cover with plants and trees, or it could be as simple as increasing the resolution. Maybe the client or your customer is happy with full HD today, but tomorrow he wants a 2K resolution render, and immediately he could come back and tell you that he is wanting a 4K render, which could be a daunting task because a render takes a lot of time. And if you're looking at scaling it up 4 times, for example, from a full HD resolution of a render to 4K, it is 4 times the amount of rendering process which it would need to give you that kind of output. And not to forget, if he wants a resolution which is meant for a hoarding or a billboard, then go on again. You're looking at a resolution of 8K or a 16K file. So this kind of becomes quite challenging because there is no way you can give your customer or client that kind of resolution very fast or very easily. So that's one of the major things which is the problem with traditional workflows. The other aspect is animation content needs, which kind of could change by adding, if they wanted to add a certain kind of traffic system, or let's say people walking, or it could be any kind of navigation system which you would need in your walkthroughs. That does not happen, overnight. You would need to kind of uh, make sure that it is incorporated. You cannot just plug and play something and expect it to render with your current rendering options. That is something which would need a before thought. It cannot be an afterthought process. So that is something which also is a huge problem with today's design visualization pipeline. Um, Last not the least, you definitely, if you have a lot on your plate, the cost increases because now you cannot do it in-house. You have to kind of look outside. You have to hire another studio to do it. It goes beyond what the project actually would, pay for. So last not the least, no enough skill sets, no resources, which would also cripple the entire pipeline altogether. So these are the major reasons why people would usually fall back or fall flat in the traditional way of how design visualization really works today. Having said that, it works for a lot of people. It is working fine, but then it is time to kind of explore new options which we are bringing and how we can easily do that without investing too much of our time, energy, and costs. So in terms of customer demands, they definitely want more fast rendering speeds. They want their images to be as photoreal as possible. They want different angles. They're just not happy with a front or a side. They want various angles. They want an angle which could be in terms of how, if a baby walks through, how would a baby see it versus an adult. So there are various demands from a customer which could just come in, and we as design house studios could be actually taken aback from those kind of demands because those changes need time for processing, because every image or every video requires you to have a certain amount of rendering time which needs to be spent on it. So it's definitely something which has to go back. You have to revisit it, correct it, fix it, and then give your customer back the output. And then if you are looking at interactive content, mobile, tablet, that is again an additional source of work which is now getting very popular. Everybody wants your visualizations on a device which is very mobile. He could access it from anywhere, any platform, and he needs to be in touch with what he sees or experiences. So that is something which Autodesk is here to solve with Stingray. Last not the least, the entire architectural market, the major construction companies have already started creating real-time visualization contents using traditional gaming engines. Typically, if I were to talk about gaming engines, there are two which are quite famous because they've been there for a long time, Unity and Unreal. So they exist, but they are very difficult to kind of work around because they are actually gaming engines and they are typically used for creating games. But using it for real-time visualization or design visualization is actually a challenging task because it was never meant to do that kind of work. And small and middle-sized construction companies have not started all of that yet. So they don't have the kind of programming skills or the programmer resources to be able to do all of that work in an engine like Unity or Unreal. So that is something which is actually challenging. So an interactive engine would exist, but then learning that is kind of a different level altogether, and it's not very user friendly. So if you were to go back, was there any question there? Okay, I'm gonna assume no. Perfect. So yeah, so a technology like that exists today, but Unity or Unreal is not the kind of engine which you would be using for doing your visualization. You're free to explore and experiment, but the way I have seen things, very close knit with Max and Stingray and Revit, I'm sure you're gonna love how Stingray really works in the pipeline and fits everything together. So there are commercial real-time visualizers which exist today. We have our own Autodesk Showcase. We have Autodesk VRED, with which you can do these kind of real-time visualizations. Then low quality ones, which are like Fuso, Lumen RT, Visit Viewer, Qubity, BIMX. You can definitely make notes of these terms if you were not aware. This is something which would be a nice homework kind of a scenario. If you were not aware of this, this is good enough to kind of make notes. Even if you miss out on something, you can definitely write to me. I'll share my email ID towards the end, and then we can take this forward. Then there is Unreal Engine, Unity, and then there's Clever. So these things are obviously in a different segment altogether in terms of hardcore gaming engines versus simplified workflows like Showcase or Autodesk VRED. Now, in terms of high quality and maintaining the expandability and the simplicity, there are different things which I can share with you. For example, Showcase and Autodesk VRED, they're not game engines per se. You cannot do interactivity, you cannot do logics in them. They don't have definite CPU and a GPU division in them. So a lot of things are still CPU dependent. A lot of things would require a good graphic card to kind of work with. So there are certain limitations to that in terms of it'll give you high quality, but then the demand for the hardware kind of also increases significantly. When it comes to Unity and Unreal, then it's definitely a game engine. It can do anything to do with games, but if you're trying to do real-time visualization, it'll fall flat because it requires a lot of amount of programming skills to kind of pull it all together, and then you kind of lose your way towards achieving your goal. So that's one of the big drawbacks of Unity and Unreal, that they are very, very centric to making games. In terms of BIM or CAD plugin, they are more like plugins, and they would plug into Showcase and Autodesk VRED to give you that interactivity, but they are not really interactive engines per se. So that's something which you will have to kind of keep in mind when it comes to these kind of visualizers which exist today. If I were to compare certain costs, this is obviously a very approximate number. You can get in touch with us for INR. This is just, I would say, hypothetical or close to the amounts which you would be offered in India. They are dollar pricing, and they would vary significantly. So if I were to compare Stingray, this would be $30 per month, which is comparatively very less to any other engine which is available. If you were to look at Unity or Unreal, Unreal is definitely free, but then in order for it to make it as a product, you would need to kind of look at the loyalty programs with which you have to give them back some 5% or a certain margin. So all that is additional. Then you have various plugins like Lumion Pro and Lumion or Visit Viewer. They kind of go at a crazy amount, like $3,000 plus, and Visit Viewer is around $1,000 plus for the first year in subscription, and Fusor is like $14,000. So there are like crazy pricings which are there, and if you were to look at the simplicity with which Stingray really fits into the entire ecosystem, that $30 pricing is a pretty sweet spot for you to do your design visualizations interactively very easily. So that's something to kind of remember. You can get back to us on more clarity for that pricing. Our sales team would be more than happy to help you with each and every detail. So one of the main things which a Unity or Unreal or Epic would really, now this is for people who are aware about gaming engines being used for design visualization. So there are complex contracts with game engine developers, especially with Unity and Epic, which kind of adds like an additional challenge to creating your final content. So that is something which one needs to be really aware of. You have no idea how to pay royalties on that program or the output which you are producing, because it's typically a design visualization interactive visual which you're creating. It's not a game, so it's something which is very challenging to understand what exactly is going on. Then you have a programming skill set requirement. You have to hire programmers to get these things done, and if there is any troubleshooting required, again you need a highly technical resource. And if you have to convert data, again you have to pipe in certain engineers to kind of make it work. So the whole point of this particular slide is to make you guys aware that it's not easy working with traditional game engines the way people are trying to do that. They really need to put in a lot of expertise into getting a good design visualization system up and running from traditional gaming engines which are available. So that's something which you need to keep in mind if you're working in that scenario. The major thing which also we have seen is the shaders, which if you're created, let's say in 3ds Max, they really don't go back inside these typical gaming engines like Unity or Unreal. You really need to replug them. And imagine if you have 1,000 assets in your scene file, which is quite normal, you need to manually assign each and every shader to all of them. So which is a manual process, takes a lot of time, and it's not as interactive as it could be. So I'm just going to check any questions. Where does the Stingray stand in the 4 quadrants? Yes, I'm going to come to that slide and I'm going to show you. It won't be in any of those 4 quadrants. It stands in a different league altogether. So Mohammed, I'll probably cover that in the slides to come. Thanks for that. So now let's talk about Stingray, and this is it in terms of you can do professional design visualizations as well as professional games, because it is a gaming engine, but it has been designed in a way that it will help you do your visualization much more effectively and fast. So it's a data-driven architecture, and it's something which is highly flexible and highly customizable if you really need to. But for design visualization, we have made it in such a way that it's as easy as clicking a button and everything else getting taken care of. That's the workflow which we are talking about. So this is definitely the quadrant which Mohammed was asking, and this is where Stingray really exists today. It is high quality, it's very much expandable, and it's something which has a different league altogether. It covers both the simplicity factor as well as high quality, all in all, and it also is something which will add a lot of power to the end user. So if I'm talking about the major advantages, you can use standard materials and other materials as is. You don't have to really change anything. So if you made something in 3ds Max and you expect the same shader networks to kind of go through inside the gaming engine, it happens seamlessly. A major workflow is around shader effects, because Stingray is a photorealistic renderer. or you could say physically based rendering system. That is what Stingray is, which means shader effects, if you're using, your visuals would be very accurate, not only inside 3ds Max but also inside Stingray. So whenever you are making any kind of material or shaders, your photorealism will stand out because of the fact that it's a physically based rendering system. So that is one of the major advantages of Stingray and being in the ecosystem of 3ds Max, Stingray, and eventually the Revit workflow. So if I were to mention one more thing, it's a one-click connectivity between 3ds Max and Maya. I don't know how many of you really create design visualization content on Maya, but if you have to do that, yes, it's a one-click connectivity. So let's say you have made a building or an entire construction in 3ds Max or Maya, you can just click on one button and send the entire scene file to Stingray without any issues. And what you can also do is you can actually sync your viewport in such a way that whenever you move the viewport of 3ds Max or Maya, automatically your Stingray's camera will also move. So it's very ergonomical, very systematic, and very organized in terms of how both these engines really work. And if you have to really import animation, you can now use a game exporter. We've added game exporter as a plugin both inside Max and Maya. So it's as simple as clicking on the game exporter, choosing FBX, choosing materials, models, animation, everything will get exported in one go. Now, the reason why it's called as a game exporter, because if you're talking about any kind of walk cycles for a person walking around, you can actually have game exporter export these as different clips, like a walking clip, running clip, jumping clip. That's what game exporter really helps. And if you want to export out a camera animation, that is also possible, because then it will be just keyframes of that camera which gets exported. I'm going to just have a look at the questions again, if there are any. Okay, perfect. So that was it. Any questions till now about advantages of using Stingray as an interactive engine? I know. Okay, perfect. Brilliant question. Where do we do the lighting? We can do the lighting in both the places, in Max as well as Stingray. So if you've used standard lights of 3ds Max, then that kind of comes seamlessly inside Stingray, and you can work from there. I definitely will showcase that, and if you have more questions around that, then eventually I will answer them as well. Does Stingray has a material library? Not yet, but we use all the libraries of 3ds Max which exist, the standard default libraries which are there. Standard materials get supported, and also the architectural materials do get supported. Stingray is also cloud with Autodesk 360. Any good news for V-Ray users? Yes, V-Ray materials are also supported. So that is something which you can do very easily. And we can do walkthroughs as well. So, okay. So let's do one thing. I'm going to go to the next slide again and revisit all your questions. And I'm sure I will be able to answer all of them when I'm showing you the presentation. So I'm going to just close that. So just to answer, yes, we can do walkthroughs very easily. Okay, so one of the major ways of how we handle the lighting system, or I could say the visual quality of Stingray, is by using Autodesk's Beast. It's basically a realistic natural lighting effect, and it is the rendering core or the engine of Stingray, and that is what it's called. It's called as Beast. Okay, and it's really Beast in the nature that it can handle a lot of data, and it could produce real-time renders very seamlessly and effectively. We also have a navigation system. This is basically artificial intelligence. So if you have a scene file and you need to navigate around different walls and pillars, navigation system of Autodesk inside Stingray will be able to give you a path which it actually creates automatically for you to be able to walk through it without going inside different walls and paths. So it's an artificially intelligent way of finding a path and not going through inside walls. So that is something very unique and happens very easily with the navigation system of Autodesk. Substance material supported, not yet. That is something which is for the developers to look at. There have been a lot of requests on the forums for substance materials, but I'm not aware if something has happened yet. Stingray engine has a 45-day update cycle of new features and add-ons. So that is something which could happen in any of the 45 days. So that is something which I'm sure the team at Autodesk is working, and should be something to really wait and watch if that happens or not. So as of now, substance materials are not supported. Okay, so going back to Scaleform Studio, the third point, this is basically how you would design a UI. UI is basically a user interface wherein if you want to give your client or customer a, a visual way of touching and navigating around, so you can build a UI system onto the interactive session. Sorry. So you can build an interactive session, and then you can design those layouts and menus and icons, and then take things forward from there. So Scaleform Studio is integrated inside Stingray, and it's used to do your UI designs of your layouts. So I'm going to showcase that as well, just a preview of what exactly Scaleform can do. Last not the least is for adding the human control. So if you want people around and you want them to be running, walking, jumping when you're doing any walkthroughs, that is also possible by using Human IK. It's a runtime solution for creating more natural and realistic character animations. So yes, any kind of character animation is also possible inside. Okay, going to the next slide. Yeah, so this is a typical question which really comes in, that okay, all said and done, it could be still difficult to achieve something like that, which is a fair enough question, and that is where I'm going to just showcase this kind of workflow, which would give you a better idea what exactly is going on. So if you are a traditional Revit user, you can definitely export whatever you've created with your BIM information to Max, and then from Max you can generate a FBX file which goes into Stingray, and from Stingray you can deploy an interactive visualization for your Android, iOS, or Windows. So this is how typically we have been looking at things to be. So these are the critical points where you would need to have or manage your data movement. So from Revit to Max to Stingray. And this kind of faces another challenge. A lot of work needs to be done manually by hand, which kind of becomes challenging and kind of pointless to the entire idea of a single click solution for creating visualizations from either Revit or 3ds Max inside Stingray. So what we have done is we have created a new tool set which is called as Project Expo. This is an important component. This is a big beneficial step for all Revit users, because now what they need to do is they need to, okay, this is free right now, you can just test it out, projectexpo.autodesk.com. All you would need to do is just sign up, log in. If you have an existing Revit 2014 version and above, you'll be able to happily use and explore Project Expo to the maximum. It's going to give you an interactive output of your design towards the end. That is the goal. So when you register, you basically go through a portal and a step-by-step instruction. You have to install a small plugin for Revit, which will come under the shelves or the menu icons. You have to say, after opening your Revit files, you have to say upload to Project Expo, it's going to upload your entire file onto the cloud, convert that very organically without any efforts into a Stingray engine file. And that is a file which will be an interactive file with which you can actually edit not only the light settings, because by default it is set to 11 o'clock lighting. If you want an evening lighting, you can edit that. If you want a certain kind of movement for your camera walkthrough, that is also possible. So this is something which you will have to experience, and my effort is to make you guys aware that Project Expo exists today and it's free for you to try and test it out. So please log in and have, even the simplest of Revit projects, if you have, just upload that and check the kind of interactivity which you would get from this particular tool set which we've been building. It's going to be available pretty soon, but till the time it exists free, we would love to hear back from this experience which you will have by using Project Expo. I'm just going to check quickly if there are any other questions. Any learning channel available for Stingray? Yes, lots of it. I will be showcasing that next. Does it work with Maya same way as Max? Yes, definitely it works the same way. Please tell the name of the plugin. Is this the plugin which you're referring to for Revit? If it is, then after you log in, you will get the link to the plugin very easily. So you don't have to even search for it. As soon as you log in, that's the first thing which you will be asked to do. Just download that, install it, and you will be ready to go. If I'm using Maya, can I directly export my model to Stingray and start using the model in games? Yes, you can, very easily. So all you have to do is make sure it is exported as an FBX file. And if you need the materials, make sure you check on materials. If you need to have animation, just click on animation as well. The FBX exporter will always give you these three options: model, material, and animation. If you check all three of them, it will always have all these information inside, and you can easily start using any of the engines. So that should not be a problem whatsoever. Okay, going to the next slide. These are the links, so just making you aware again: labs.autodesk.com, which you can explore other free tools which we create and promote and give you access to, and then projectexpo.autodesk.com, which is what a Revit user would love, because this is something which happens at a click of a button. So imagine so much of power just at a click of a button. This is just hard to believe. I would only request you to experience it firsthand and let us know how it goes for you. Okay, so that's Project Expo and that's Autodesk Stingray. So understand Project Expo is more of a solution which is cloud-based, and Autodesk Stingray is the engine. And for design visualization customers, this is something which kind of takes care of both the worlds. Doing simplistic work, and if you want to kind of really customize and make it all the way ahead, you can have access to the Stingray engine and customize it even further. So that is something which is what we are targeting at. For Revit users, architects who do not want major custom workflows, major changes in their design, they can simply use Project Expo and experience the interactive world with which they can control the lighting, the look and feel, the camera animation, the walkthroughs. Everything is very much structured and organized, and it is available for platforms for Windows, iOS, and Android. So that gets taken care of for Project Expo. For more experienced users or people who want to further customize it, Project Expo will give you a Stingray project file. So you can actually open it inside Stingray and then edit and customize it further. So that is kind of, piece of cake every single time you are doing any Project Expo work or you're just doing any work inside Stingray. So both are getting taken care of. So this is the cloud system which we're talking about, from Revit to the cloud to any of the mobile devices or apps on how you would want your content to be. I'm going to just scale that model up a little. I forgot to scale that up. So it's the same thing, but it's just one image. So let me just fix that. Yeah, that is good to go. So explaining the Revit process again, because this is something which you can do easily online. So here you have the Revit file, which goes for data preparation on the Project Expo cloud. It gets converted. It comes as a file which is called as the Expo edit. That Expo edit will give you the option to either take that entire project back to Stingray, edit it, modify it, go back to 3ds Max, maybe add additional animation content to it, bring it back, go to Expo edit, and make an interactive content for Android, iOS, or Windows. So that is how simple the workflow is for Revit users. And obviously, if you want to customize it, Stingray and 3ds Max will give you that overall control for it. So I'm just going to check for any questions. Okay, so yeah, no questions till now. Do you have any questions on Project Expo? Anyone? So I'm going to simply request for you guys to experience this. So even if you're a 3ds Max user, just check on this Revit workflow, because this is something important and this is happening, and this is giving more power to the architects, to the designers who are actually building these kind of contents. So do check it out. Do we need Project Expo if using 3ds Max? Not really. So I'll tell you how this would work. So this is Project Expo is targeted for Revit users and architects who do not have the expertise to work in 3ds Max. They are traditional architects who understand design, and they create everything in Revit. And for them to do interactivity, they have to either know 3ds Max, or they need to go to a person who knows 3ds Max for creating walkthroughs. So this is where Project Expo comes into the picture and helps that architect or designer to get more control over his design and effectively showcase it in a very interactive way. So that's the whole idea. So no, Project Expo is not really needed if you are using 3ds Max, because in 3ds Max you're actually creating the content for or from the Revit model. If I'm using Maya for my models, do I need the knowledge of Revit? See, if you're creating design visualization assets without the need for Revit, you are actually doing it, I would say, not physically accurate or constructionally or architecturally accurate. That is what I would assume, because Revit is very accurate in terms of the BIM information which it would have, because the whole idea of Revit is to actually make a real building towards the end. Okay, it's not just a prototype, it's not something which you're just making for fun. You're actually making a building which would eventually be getting constructed. So if you were to just ask that if I'm using Maya for my models, do I need the knowledge of Revit? No, would be my answer, because if you're using Maya for just creating your models, no, you can just do that as is. Knowledge of Revit is for architects who are actually creating construction buildings or things which would actually eventually get made in real life. It's not just for visualization, so it needs to be very accurate. So that is what I would say. Okay, so a good time to see what I have been talking about, good time to see what Stingray is capable of doing. So let's probably do that. I'm going to just close this question window, and I'm going to showcase how Stingray would play a very important role. How does it look like? So let's do that. So I'm going to open up Stingray here. This is how it's gonna launch. I'm not sure how fast or interactive this would be, so do ping me if you think you cannot see it or you're not able to, follow if something gets skipped, because it's going to be streaming my 3D application. It's not a presentation or not an image. It's actually 3D. So let me know if it's skipping too much. So I'm going to click on Beast. So okay, just to say how things are, when you open up Stingray project window, this is how the layout will look like. You can download new projects from stingrayengine.com. So let me just show you that first. So this is stingrayengine.com, and this is where you have access to it as a free trial. So simply go ahead and download it from there. You have a couple of videos explaining what I've been talking. You can just have a look at that in case you think you missed something. We have a new feature in Stingray 1.2. You can read more on that, because as I mentioned, every 45 days we keep adding and changing things. If there are any changes, we make sure that is also informed on our website. So that is something which you can do. So stingrayengine.com, all the information is available. We have great customer stories, not only in terms of games, but also design visualization customers. So that gets available over here. And then we are actually talking about the LT, Maya, and Max workflow, which you can actually watch the video. And then there are different visuals which are available. You can watch it, or you can download all of them and start using them. So when I say download, you have something called as a marketplace. So I'm going to just open that in a new tab. And I also have the learning community. So this was one of the questions which was asked. We have a learning community, so I'm just going to click on that. And you can see that it easily takes me to Autodesk Stingray Help, which gives you tutorial access, release notes, which basically helps in knowing what all is getting added, example downloads, scene files from the asset store. So the asset store which I'm mentioning over here, it's available under Stingray resources. So if I were to go over here, you can see these are the example projects. This is what a UI basically is. So let me just click on that. Sorry, it is downloading. That was not the idea. But when I say scale form, you can see what exactly I mean. So this is what you can design with scale form. You have a template menu, you have start, options, credits, quit. This is what you would design for an interactive renderer. So imagine you are having an exe file which says start navigation, stop navigation, go left, go right. So the design of all those buttons is done by using scale form, which obviously is available inside Stingray free of cost. You don't have to pay extra for it. This is part of that. So what I have available over here is a zip file for that template. So in case you want to kind of use that template and use it for your own interactive session, this is what you could do. And these are examples of scene files which are available. If you are interested in making your own little game, you can also do that. There are files and kits which are available for that. And then if you want to download or buy something online, those kind of contents are also available. So there's a huge list of assets and asset libraries and things which you can simply download and use inside Stingray, because it's a ready to use project, and there's a lot of it. So simply go. So this is the one-step access. Go to stingrayengine.com, and here is where you can find everything. Communities, where you can discuss things in forums, learn from it. You have a student license. It's a different download altogether. If you want to try, that's the free trial. If you want to buy, you can click on that. If you want to access the marketplace to download these kind of tool sets and resources, that is also available. And then you have a developer login. So if you want to further take things forward, you also have a developer login access to that. So in a nutshell, this is where you would go, stingrayengine.com. You have all the access for any kind of resource possible. So let's go back. I'm going to just minimize that. Let's go back inside the Stingray project. I have the Beast apartment project, which is what I usually showcase for the visual quality. I just have a question. Let me see what that is. Um, do we need Project Expo if you using 3ds Max? If I'm using Maya, okay, that has. How many year license for student? I I won't be aware of that. I'll have to check back. Not sure about that. So 30 days off the bat is definitely free, but I'm not sure how many years of license is available for a student. I could check back, or even if you have it open, just see what the student thing says. I can also actually check. So it does say free. You probably have to sign in and check on that. I think typically for other software, I think it's a 1 year or a 2 year term. Monthly licensing is available 3 year. Okay, perfect. 3 year it is. Then somebody I think checked and got back. For a student, I think it's 3 years then. Monthly licensing is available. Definitely something which a sales guy can get back to you on. I will not be available for commenting on the monthly bit. I think it's available, but I'm not sure. It's something, it differs from region to region. So that is something, if it is available in the US, it might be available in India for, let's say, a 3 month period and not just 1 month. So it would completely differ based on different locations and the policies. So that is something which we'll have to, get back from the sales angle. They'll be able to tell in what scheme is it available. Is it quarterly? Is it yearly? Is it monthly? That is something, yeah, we will get back to you. Okay, let me actually show you now the visual quality of Stingray. I'm just going to open up a scene file, which is, by the way, also available online, so you can explore that. Mind you, it's been done using Max and using shader effects. Can you all see the visual quality? I'm just going to scale this up. So yeah, that's in real time. That's how things look inside Stingray as the gaming engine. And if I were to look at things which are shiny and metallic, can you see that? It's pretty awesome. The visual quality is very stunning, and all that in real time. You didn't even have to render it. It's all there. Let me just hide the grid for you so that you can see it much better. See the reflections on the floor? Okay, just gonna pop up the question. Are the materials developed in Max? Yes, they are using shader effects. So your materials, your shaders, everything will happen in Max or Maya, and then you export things as FBX. So when you are taking content inside Stingray, you're more assembling the things which you have created either in Revit, Max, or Maya, and you're putting everything together. Why? To create interactive content. That is the whole idea of Stingray. You are creating an interactive content for your customer or for your own, use case. So let me actually show you more visual quality options. If I were to just move around things, you can see that it's actually interactively moving. It's not something which is locked. So that is something pretty cool. Let me add a light source for you to kind of see that lights can be added and tweaked. So here's my light source. I can change the color to, let's say, red, increase the intensity. See that? So that's the kind of lighting which you can obviously do. There is another kind of lighting which is called as a shader lighting, which is more for illuminating a shader. So all these light sources are on the bulbs over here. They're actually illuminated shaders. They're not really lights. So it's a shader which has luminosity, and it basically emits a light source kind of effect. But if you want to create traditional lights, you can do that very easily as well. So you can see you can move, place wherever you would want, and that's where the light would start affecting. You can control the fall-offs, the range where you would want to limit that, and typically for highlights and stuff you can start exploring what is possible. I'm just going to delete that for a while, and let me show you how I can change the shading environment effect. You immediately saw that I have global lighting controls, I have cascaded shadow mapping controls, fog effect control, exposure, screen space ambient occlusion, so I can switch it on and off. I have access to ambient occlusion. Screen space reflections, I can have reflections on the floor with objects which are surrounding. Can you see that? All that is real time. Let me just see what is the system configuration that you're using, graphic cards in particular. Okay, so I have a pretty old workstation laptop. It's already 3 years old, and this is right now using an NVIDIA card. It has 32 GB of RAM and 3.5 gigahertz of CPU power. Having said that, this was definitely a good workstation when it was bought. Now obviously it's old, but it is holding my content pretty well. The requirements of Stingray is you just need a card, a graphic card which can support DirectX 11. That's one of the requirements. If it's 2 GB, then it's good. If it's more than that, then it's better. So 2 GB would be the minimum I would say and suggest, which should be compatible with DirectX 11 case scenarios. And then the more hardware you give, obviously you can have more data onto it, but the main question you would ask is, are you creating this content for a laptop? Are you creating this content for a mobile device? So that should answer the way how you would create your content. So that is something to actually look forward and think about, because if you're creating a content for iPad or let's say a Windows phone or an Android phone, you would need to think about how much of content you can actually load inside, because you don't want the interactive experience to be slow for the end user or your customer. So that is something which I would think about. So having said that, let me just show you one more thing and talk about connectivity and how you can export from Stingray to multiple platforms, and how you can also parallelly check how things can be connected live and see how heavy or how light things are. So I'm just going to enable depth of field. You can see that the entire thing gets defocused. I can have a focus region. Let me just expand that. Can you see that? The sofa is in focus, the rest of the backgrounds are defocused. So that is something pretty cool, because you have the ability to give more depth into your designs, give it more of a cinematic look and feel, which every customer loves. So this is the kind of visual quality which a person can experience. Let me just disable depth of field and now showcase the interactive session. So I've been talking a lot about interactivity, but let me show you the entire model first from the outside. So this is what this is. It was done in Max and then exported as FBX and brought inside Stingray. Once it's inside Stingray, because of shader effects, everything looks really nice and appealing. And with that kind of scenario, all I have to do is click on this green button. This green button will help me enable the entire scene file to be interactive. So click on that, let it process, and let it launch a window which will give me interactivity. You see those arrows, front, side. So if I start moving my mouse, you can see that I can go around anywhere. So this is the power of Stingray and what it can create just by a click of a button. So all you did was create the asset inside Max or Maya, and you brought it inside Stingray, and all you did was a test level, which gave you the ability to not only move and look around, but actually walk inside your design. So this is what we actually mean by being inside your design and having a walkthrough which is very seamless and pretty fast. You can also see a lot of metallic surfaces react quite well, and the visual quality is quite stunning. Even if I were to look at the floor, that's all shiny and has a reflection on it. If I were to check out lights, lights are nice. You have nice reflected kitchen area. So everything is pretty streamlined and organized. And if I had to check out the quality and details of the sofa, that is also pretty detailed. And all thanks to shader effects and how uh, it looks visually inside Stingray's environment. All thanks to the Beast lighting system, which is actually making all of them look so real and so effective. I'm going to escape that and just check if there are any questions till now. Make this full screen and demo. .stl file. Um, if I make this full screen, it's going to crash because I'm sharing my screen here. Definitely we can do a full screen and do that, but then I won't be able to come back because it's going to eat up um, the way this screen sharing thing works. So I won't be able to do that. .stl, I'm not sure if it's supported, but .stp is supported. .step files, I will have to check on the .stl. But if you're talking about Stingray and what kind of file format it supports, then no. Stingray only supports FBX files. So yeah, that is something which is there. If you're talking about 3ds Max or Maya, .stl is something I'll have to check if it supports or not. I am not aware. Does it support Oculus? Yes, Stingray supports Oculus and HTC Vive. Both are available, and in fact there is a separate VR template which I will be showcasing next. No, only FBX for now. Anything for future I won't be able to comment because that's something which is a forward-looking statement. I do not have the information, but maybe, maybe not. This is something for the product team to kind of look into. If you're really interested in the roadmap, I can link you up with people who could help you if you're making any business decisions which is based around OBJ and would impact your business, then definitely my product team would be able to help you, giving you information around the roadmap of Stingray and taking things forward. So that's something. As of now, OBJ no, only FBX. So Mac supports HTL. Okay, perfect. So yes, then you will have to come via Max inside Stingray because Stingray only would support FBX files. So okay, let's go back to another experience over here. I'm going to file open another project which is a subway project. Again, this is something which is available. This is more like an interactive session. So you can see the visual quality again. This is more of an interior night kind of a scenario. So this is like a subway, and if somebody had to visualize subway, and you also have a character over here. You can see that there are people here, and if I had to test this level, I can simply press on that green button, and I'm not sure if you guys can hear the sound of the train, but this is actually a visualization of the train coming in and going. So the whole idea of something like this is to give an experience. So that is what we're talking about. See, I just went through the train itself. So this is quite crazy, and this is something which we have access to. You can also step out if you want and then go back inside. I just escaped that. This scene file is obviously available for free download. Do check it out. It's just a simple. Okay, sorry about that. There is an audio which is the station making an announcement of the train coming, and then there's a sound of the train traveling. That's what is going on. This project is freely available, so you can just simply download and experience this in the same fashion which I just showcased. So the idea again here was to kind of show you the visual quality, what is possible today, the kind of reflections which are there, the kind of realism of the tiles, the reflections on the floor, and everything is interactive. So you don't have to really worry about render times and anything. Everything is structured very easily. Last not the least, we have deploy and connect. This is what I was talking about. If you have to export it out as exe, you can do that. For Android device, you can do that. iOS, if you want to make it for a console platform, you can do it for PS4 as well as Xbox. So all these 5 options are available. Typically, if you're a design visualization guy, you would need Windows, Android, or iOS. These are the 3 platforms which you would need, and Stingray definitely supports all of it. If you're talking about VR projects and support for Oculus, under the template section, we have a VR system for Oculus and HTC, which is already working, and we also now have a VR system for Steam. Those of you who are not aware about Steam, Steam is a game online engine platform which basically connects all your games online, and people can do multiplayer games or single player games via Steam. So it's basically more of a collaborative way of how you would work on a game. And if you have VR enabled games, so this VR Steam will help you do that. So this is more for gamers, but yeah, I'm just mentioning that this also exists today. But if you want to create content for Oculus, this is a template which you would use. So let me just show you how the template will eventually flow. Let me just close this file. I have another setup for VR. Let me open that. I have 2 versions of Stingray. So one was an older scene file. That's the only reason I am switching between 2 versions, nothing else. I'm going to just test this level, and you can see that this is what I was talking about. This has been built by using Scaleform. So if I say start, you can see that now we have an Oculus enabled support, and I can travel, and if you have plugged in an Oculus Rift device, this will work without any issues. How cool is that? And with the template, what you can actually do is you can actually bring in your entire data set inside this template and just delete the existing files and use it for your own advantage. That's how easy it is, and then you can export it for any platforms which you would need, which you think supports the VR for Oculus. So I personally think it would be on Windows platform, so you can export it as exe and then share it and use it freely and experience the virtual reality aspect of your designs. So that is something which happens automatically, very easily, at a click of a button. Any questions around this? Okay, so last bit which I wanted to showcase was probably just a simple scenario wherein I can showcase what I'm talking about. Let's say I open up 3ds Max here, and in 3ds Max I have, let's say, an empty scene file. And what if I want to start building my scene file from 3ds Max and take it inside Stingray? What would I need to do? So let's see how it goes and how you can create your assets and bring it inside 3ds Max and how you can connect different things. So I'm just going to let Max open up a little. Okay, so there is no maximum polycount support. It's basically the kind of hardware you have and you're making your content for, so you can, push all the limits. I'm sure there is an end limit to with which the engine might crash, but that's something which would go in millions or probably in billions as well. But you have to be aware of what kind of platform are you making the interactive design visualization for. So that should be the first question. Are you making it for an iPad? Are you making it for Android? Are you making it for Windows? Based on that platform's limitation or the kind of hardware that platform has, you will need to design your visualizations accordingly. So that is like a small process of work, and which obviously happens seamlessly because you can connect your project of Stingray to your device in a live format. And when I say live format, whatever you are creating, you can plug an Android device or a Windows phone or your iPhone and see how it is moving about when you're actually moving the viewport of Stingray. So it's as interactive as that. And that system is called as Connect. So I'll show you that Connect options because it's just next to deploy. But that Connect will really help you understand how much poly count can you throw at that device, and it will give you an idea how much is acceptable or not, because it's going to be a very intuitive feedback. So that's where you would draw conclusions on how much poly count it can support or not. As a software, it can definitely support, but you are making content for a device, so that is something which you should be keeping in mind and making it accordingly. So let's go back to Max and let's just take an empty scene file. I'm just going to split Max in half. I know it might be slightly challenging to see and observe things, but let me see if I have enough room for both. So I've already installed the plugin for Stingray, and that's why it should pop up. Every Max and Maya license, or you could say the installation file, will have a Stingray installer. It's basically a plugin installer which you would need to install, and that's how it will show up over here. So when you download 3ds Max 2016 and Maya 2016, only then you will have access to the Stingray plugin. It was not available before, so you won't find this particular support in previous versions. Only 2016 and onwards you will find the Stingray support. So when you are installing, you will find this installer, and then you can install the plugin of Stingray, and that is how it's going to pop up this menu. For Revit, it is 2014 and above. Yes, the plugin is free. At least for the trial bit, it's going to be free. Only when the license of trial expires, that is when the software will stop running. But for 30 days, it's going to be free. So without obviously either Stingray or Max, the plugin would be useless because it would need one or the other. So that's what I typically mean. Okay, so for Stingray, you can see whatever information I have over here, I can send all of it, send the selection, I can overwrite materials, I can do live camera tracking, I can connect to Stingray, and I can disconnect. So all these parameters are available. Let me just open Stingray on the side and show you a side-by-side comparison, what exactly is going on. Not the old one, probably the new one. Okay, so I'm going to take, let's say, an empty project over here. Okay, I've been told we are about time to close, but I'm just going to quickly showcase this so that you have an idea what kind of interactivity which you're talking about. I'm just going to take an empty file. Let me just look at questions. Is plugin supported to Max 2012? No, only 2016 and onwards. Sorry about that. This was a recent edition. We could not support it for older versions, only 2016 and onwards. So one good thing about Stingray latest edition is you can also have this new tutorial getting started guide. So if you're installing the new 1.2, you will have all of this information easily available and also on the right hand side. So that is where you can learn it from. Okay, I'm gonna keep this Stingray window open on the side. Let's take a simple example. I'm gonna just create a plane and I'm just gonna create teapots. Okay, as simple as that. So imagine I am making an architectural scene file here. I've made the layouts, I've made the guides, and now I'm trying to build chairs and content for it. So what I will simply do is I'm going to say Stingray send all. When I say send all, you can see what's going on. It gives me access to the Stingray project, by the way, because that's opened empty project. You can see that that's the folder path it took me to. I'm going to go to objects. That's the folder where I would want all this to be there. I'm going to say teapot. It exports as FBX. When I say save, it's going to ask me, do I want to save materials? Yes. Textures? Yes. Animation? I don't have any animation, so no animation yet. So I'm going to say import, lights, camera, level of detail, create texture folders, everything yes. I'm going to say import to that. Once that happens, I'm going to say connect. It's already connected. I'm going to say update. Once it says update, you can see under the objects I have this teapot. This is an older file, but you can see that there is this teapot which I can move around. I can double click and I can open it in the unit editor. How cool is that? So that's how effective the workflow is. Imagine if I add more details. Let's say I'm just going to add that, and I'm going to just start populating each and everything which I would do here. You know, like make a fancy structure out of all this. Once I've done that, I can simply say boom, update. That kind of pops up over here. Voila. So that's the kind of interactivity which we are talking about, and this is something brilliant. You can connect in a live fashion. Whatever is going on, that kind of gets updated, and that is something which is very effective and useful. If I wanted to apply any materials, let's say I'm just going to go to compact material mode. Let's say I have this glass. I'm going to apply this glass shader onto that, a few of them, and let's say I say update, and you can see that now the solid glass shader has also been updated. I can double click on that, first make it unique, open the shader, and it's going to give me the same material properties of what I would see in Max, so same nodes and everything. So that is the amount of connectivity which is now possible. Imagine a workflow which is so seamless in nature and helps you do your content so easily. So that's what we are talking about. Let me just add, let's say, one more material, probably make the color, let's say, blue, and now say update. That's gonna update as well. I already had a default material which said as red, so it is overwriting that, not a problem. I'll probably use the second one, change it to blue. I could rename it. So yeah, naming is very important, otherwise it's not going to update. So that is there, and now if I were to see it, you can check that I have an updated material. So you can definitely add textures, and that is again going to create a network, and then you would be able to, you know, check visually what's going on. So it's the most effective way of how you can plug in different things. Thanks for that, Kiran. Yes, it is something which is very unique in the nature and how we've been plugging things together so that the workflow is super easy for you guys. Unit editor is where you have access to each and every object and component, and you can decide what you want to do with it. So what I mean by that is where you would apply your logics. If you want the teapot to kind of scale up or scale down, unit editor is where you would define those parameters, and you would do all sort of logical connections to create a certain event. We call this as trigger based events to have certain activities. For example, if you want to change or animate the teapot, if you press a button on the keyboard, let's say if you press button number 2 on the keyboard and you want the teapot to change into, let's say, a table, that is a trigger based event, and that is what interactivity means, right? If you press something, something should happen. So unit editor is where you would define all of that. Polynomials need to be inverted. Not they should be all correct. They do not need to be inverted. It can be normal as is. It will directly update, or every time we have to click the update button. We have to click on the update button because it's an FBX format which is linking both of them. So when you click on update, what it does is it actually saves onto the FBX, and that FBX gets updated inside Stingray. So right now that is the workflow. Maybe in future it might be just as seamless as moving whatever you're seeing in Max to Stingray, and this works with Maya as well. This works in the same way, so that should not be any problem whatsoever. Can we do image renders? Yes, we can do image renders. There's a plugin which we have made. So on our YouTube channel, you will find a lot of instructions of how you can create and save image sequences and images from the renders of Stingray. I won't really say renders because Stingray is a real-time engine. So whatever you see, that is what you get. So you can capture the scene and save it out as image sequences. And whatever resolution you would want, you can define that, and that's how the image would be saved as. So yes, that is also available. Any other questions? Because I would be wrapping it up. I've already extended, apologize. I've gone 20 minutes past my scheduled time, but this is the kind of workflow which I was talking about, and it is super intuitive and super easy to kind of start. I would definitely request everyone, just to recap, if you are Revit users, check out Project Expo. If you are 3ds Max users, just go to stingrayengine.com, download the free trial version, install Stingray, and learn from the learning channel which we have made available. And if you have any doubts or any questions, please reach out to me. I'm going to give you all my email ID so that you can write to me for any doubts. Okay, I hope you guys have received. How will V-Ray materials work if exporting FBX? Um, it's actually available under the resource. So the idea is whatever V-Ray materials are, which can be seen in the viewport of Max, that is what gets converted. It's not all of it, but it's the ones which can be seen in the viewport. So these are the release notes, and this is where you would get that information of what all V-Ray materials are supported. So since it's lack of time, you could email me this query and I would send you these links so that it's easier for us to discuss this further. But giving the amount of time which now I have, I would definitely take this one-on-one with you and give you all the resources available for V-Ray as such. So do write to me and I can share that. Any other questions which you have? Max and Maya 2016 for Stingray? Yes, Max and Maya 2016 is the version for. Didn't get my email ID. Okay, let me do that. I'll probably hop open to the slide. There you go. This should be good enough. Abhishek.Krishnan at Autodesk.com. Okay, thank you so much, guys. Thanks for your patience. Sorry for slightly going above. There was a lot to show, and I'm sure there is a lot more to cover as well. I would love to hear back from all of you if you are experimenting with Project Expo or if you've tried Stingray on its own. I would love your feedback. Please do reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to help in case you guys have any questions. Thank you so much, and all the best. Happy visualization. That's all I could say. Thank you so much, guys.